I'm Mike Copper, and what I'm doing here is I'm going to try to record a video about my experience in the Vietnam War. I thought I would do this for any family members that were interested, remember my grandchildren, any fellow vets, anybody that wanted to study about the war might want to listen to this. But, I can pass this on to my descendants if they're interested. But it's nice to be here recording this video. I've made lots of movies, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done, recording myself. But anyway, 58 years ago this month, which is now August 2025, in early August of 67, I got orders to go to Vietnam. I was stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and I was in a holding company, and I was ready to get out of there anyway. And I'd gone up to the field first sergeant, going to put my paperwork in to go to EOD school. That's bomb squad stuff. And he said, "No there, PFC, you're going to Vietnam with me," and handed me a set of orders. Wonderful. So anyway, I went to RVN training, 3 days of prepping you to go to Vietnam. First day giving it to base theater, and they made Vietnam sound so good you couldn't wait to go. And he talked about the money you're going to get, hostile fire pay, which we call combat pay, and overseas pay, and you don't pay taxes. So, man, I'm going to get a good payday over there. Better than this, what was I getting, about $110 a month. So anyway, I go on leave, get 22 days, supposed to get 30 days if you're shipping to Vietnam. Well, for some reason, who knows why, it's the Army, I got 22. And I would have taken a 30. So at that point in time, I went on leave to Delaware, Ohio. Leave, it's over pretty quick. Fly to Chicago, from Chicago to San Francisco, because I'm heading for the Oakland Army Depot. That's where you prep up and process to deploy to Vietnam. I didn't know a lot about the war at that time, but I know now. I know in high school, in the mid-60s, like 64, 65, we talked about the war in Vietnam, and I didn't really understand it. The TV news sometimes would refer to the war in Vietnam as the war in Indochina. It's like, I'm thinking we got two wars going here. I didn't know where Indochina was. I collect stamps. But anyway, I get to San Francisco, go out to Oakland Army Depot, won't spend a lot of time talking about it. All I know, it was move, stop, process again, get shots, and other kinds of things. Then we finally, after about maybe 3 days I was there, take a bus to Travis Air Force Base and hop on a Braniff commercial contract airlines. Braniff was out of Texas, and it was a contractor. We flew either on a 707 or a DC-8. Their planes were different colors. I guess that'd make you feel happy to fly on a green plane versus a red or something. Of course, you board the plane by rank, and I'm a PFC. So that means I get on last. I got near the back middle seat for the 20-plus hour flight. We fly to Hawaii, get off the plane for what? A couple minutes really. Enough to have a soda pop, get you back on board, and we fly to Manila in the Philippines. So happens my Aunt Marge was married to an airman, Air Force sergeant who was stationed there at Clark Air Base in the Philippines. That's where we landed. I called her up. She came out to visit with me. She had a big Cadillac, I remember. Came out, and I was really, grateful she would do that. Just kind of cheered me up a little, talk to somebody, kind of a family member. Now the plane takes off. We're supposed to go to Benoit. And this is about a 2-hour flight, if I remember right. And pilot comes on board. We're not going to Benoit Air Force Base. We're going to Tonsanute. which is the Saigon Airport and Tonsanute Air Force Base, all combined in one. The pilot said Benoit Air Force Base was under attack. So we're going to land in Saigon, which we did. We had to fill out customs forms for Vietnam, it's crazy. So anyway, we hopped these air-conditioned buses with frosted windows. You can't see out. But anyway, they're air-conditioned. And I thought, man, that's neat. Maybe things in Vietnam all over the place are air-conditioned. Man, that's pretty good this hot weather. Well, that was about the last time I rode in anything that was air-conditioned over there. So we go take a 17-mile trip to a large U.S. Army base called Long Bend and go to something called the 90th Replacement Battalion. Get off the bus there. It's dark. You're tired. First thing to do is change money. Get rid of your green dollars. You couldn't have them, and you got military payment certificates. We call it MPC. Then we went in some kind of a building, and some sergeant comes out and, gentlemen, welcome to Vietnam. You are a guest here. I thought I want to be a damn guest, but you are. And you process them. Finally go to barracks. You're jet lagged, 12 hours behind. And all I heard was artillery fire in the distance all night. And I'm thinking, man, must be one heck of a battle going on. What I'm listening to, yes, it's artillery fire, but it's called H&I fire, harassment and interdiction. The artillery folks just shoot out into the jungle, into free fire zones. They have no specific target. Just fire shells out there. Maybe you hit somebody. I know Westmoreland got a little bit of trouble for spending all this money on artillery that you're firing is not really going at any specific target. But anyway, next day I get up and didn't do much of anything. You go to a formation and eventually they call your name out. You hop on a truck, and my battalion happened to be there at Long Bend. Take it to the battalion headquarters. We were probably there 4 or 5 days, slept in this small tent. But one thing I'll say about it, we had a good sergeant in charge of us, a Master Sergeant Ladd. He came to us and said, look, fellas, I know you're tired. I'm not putting you on detail or anything. Got in process, and I'll just tell you what, you make my formation, the police call, keep your hair cut, don't get in trouble, I'll leave you alone. Let you get acclimatized. And, that's a leader. This video's about leadership in a way. But anyway, start off pretty good leader, that's nice. And we in process. And eventually they put us on a truck back to Tonsanute because I'm going to Queen Yan with a couple of the guys that were new. I don't know where in the heck Queen Yan is. All I know, up north. I remember my first C-130 ride. I learned what troop seats were. But get to Queen Yan, it's night, of course. Nobody's there to pick us up. We haven't eaten, except for breakfast that morning. Had anything to eat. But anyway, somehow we got to the unit, D Company 40th Signal. They shared an encampment with the 41st Signal Battalion. So there was nobody there to really welcome you. I didn't expect a band or anything, but no one's there to welcome new guys. Let's see, here's what you need to do now. And we went to the CQ. He showed us the so-called transient quarters, which are nothing but bunks with no mattresses. You laid down there, tried to sleep, and fight off the mosquitoes. Lots of mosquitoes. And the smell, what I didn't know, at the back of the barracks, about, make it at the most 40 feet away, was a fence. The other side of that fence was a field. And that's where the Vietnamese defecated at. There was a refugee camp in that area, and they went to that field and they pooped. And it smelled. Whew. But anyway, next day, I go to this sergeant. He wasn't a bad guy to talk to. So look, I need a mosquito net. Oh, no problem. Just go to supply and get one. Okay, that makes sense. I go to supply. We don't have any. Okay, what do I do? I go see your platoon sergeant. I just saw him. He said to come here. Oh, well, we don't have any. So I go back, see the platoon sergeant, and tell him we don't have any. Well, what most of the guys do, they find somebody going home and they get their mosquito net. So I found somebody about to go home. Yeah, he had a mosquito net and wants to sell it to me. Against the law to sell Army property. But I'm hardly going to turn them in. What I didn't know at the time, the Quinyon was on limits. You could go into town. Right outside the gate was a shop, and he had all kinds of mosquito nets. These mosquito nets were purloined from who knows where, but they were U.S. Army mosquito nets, and you had to buy one. Well, I was thinking, well, maybe it's illegal for me to buy one. I keep hearing these radio playing how black market's illegal, so I didn't want to go to jail or something for buying a mosquito net, which I wouldn't have. These are new. No one's telling you anything. But back in the unit, they told me to go see the CO. I said, God dang, what did I do already? Well, we didn't see the CO. We saw Sergeant Dukes, nice fella. He told three of us, based on your test scores, you're qualified to go to cable splicing school. And he sort of implied to do this, you'll make E5 a lot sooner. Oh, really? And I didn't want to be a pole lineman. That was a MOS, climbing telephone poles, putting up telephone cable. So anyway, Mike Massey and myself decided we'd go to cable splicing school. Back to the airport, plane takes off, C-130 again. It's headed to Pleiku. Well, on the way to Pleiku, an engine goes out. So we're not going to land at Pleiku. We land at Cameron Bay. I remember Mike and I, we took a bus from the airport terminal to a mess hall, which was run by the Air Force. It was actually pretty good. And we slept all night on a luggage cart. Next day, end up back to Tonsalud. They do pick us up on time and get back to the battalion area, and we start cable splicing school. A 3-week school, which was pretty good considering. It needed to be maybe 10 weeks and stuff to train us on what we're going to come up against. But it was 3 weeks. And back we go to Quinyon. So now we're back in the company area, and it's lunchtime. So this happened earlier, but I'll tell the story now. Go over to the mess hall. Man, it's hot out. It's August, and thirsty. Go to the mess hall. Oh, wow. Iced tea. All right. I pour myself some iced tea. Dang, stuff's warm. What kind of iced tea is this? Coming into the line. Oh, ice machine. That's great. Put some ice in this. Well, I had a sign on there. E6 and only. So I couldn't have ice. You get iced tea with no ice. Hey, wonderful. That's really taking care of the troops. The leadership there had the ways to get us ice, totally legal. But they didn't. They had theirs, screw us. And by the way, there were Vietnamese operated ice plants that have been inspected by the hospital, and their ice was good. There's ways to get ice, but they didn't do it. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. That's little things I remember about leadership. So back in the barracks, starting to get evening, come to me and tell me I'm going to Ankh. Had a project there, and said, Ankh, where in the heck is Ankh? Central Highlands, 1st Cav Division headquarters. I'm thinking, God dang, you're going to go to this place at night? And what I didn't know then, you had to go up the Ankh Pass. There had been ambushes there, soldiers killed on that damn pass. So we're going up it at night, and I can't remember if I had a rifle. Must have. So off we go. And get to Ankh, and it rained and it rained. In a 3/4 ton truck, at least it was covered. And so a guy Maybe the driver said, see that light over there? Head toward that light and go in that tent. Oh man, you'll sleep in a tent. Oh, wonderful. So I walk into the tent naturally, and I'm met by a guy named Joe from Illinois, older draftee. We drafted up to 26 years old, and he was probably about pushing 28. He'd been a telephone cable splicer in Illinois, and he was, uh, heck, we'd got to work for a walking tent, hands me a beer, and I said, well, I need to make my area up. No, we done that for you. Your bunk's right there. I mean, it's all made up. Mosquito net was there, and he said, here's a lock you can use to lock up their homemade lockers, and this guy should have been a lieutenant. He was good. And really, on K wasn't a bad time, considering what it was. And come to maybe the first or second Sunday, Joe says we're all going to Sin City. What the heck's Sin City? So he took us out the gate. There's Sin City. It was a fenced-in, pretty large area full of bars and, cat houses. So they had an MP there, and he counted you in and counted you out. That way, at like 6 o'clock, they know somebody was still there, because you didn't want to be there at night. And that was interesting. Eventually, the news of Sin City got back to the press and Hank Life magazine and all. And mothers started complaining, maybe wives, girlfriends, and they shut it down. Screw the troops, politics. But eventually, projects done there. And one thing I do remember about On-K, had a Class 6 tent. Class 6 implies the Army's booze shop, beer place, whatever. And the only beer we could get about the whole time there was Black Label and something called Valentine's, was it? 3-ring beer out of Texas. And it was crummy. It didn't stand up to the heat, I don't know what. But by the end of the war, they couldn't give that stuff away. And it had soda pop in there. For about a month, the only type of soda pop you could get was Shasta Tom Collins mix. They didn't have Coke or Pepsi, nothing they really wanted. You go into the city of Quinyon, 40 miles away, which was a port city, get anything you wanted in the PX. So we'd go there, buy the better beer, and bring it back. I don't know how many cases of beer I bought, and I didn't really drink much then. But that's okay. It was $2.40 a case unless you wanted Budweiser, and it was $3 a case. The rules there in that area, to buy alcohol, you had to be a staff sergeant or above. But beer was okay, and we could buy the right kind of soda pop. And I'll stop talking about that war story. I am back in Quinyon, and they moved us out to what was called Futai Valley. I would say, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 miles out there. Number of units in Futai Valley. And so, did a little bit of cable splicing. There wasn't much to do in the area. It was all done. And one day they came to formation. Can anybody type here? I said, well, I can type. Why? You're drafted. Get in the orderly room. You're now operations clerk. Gave me a piece of crap for a typewriter. That's my biggest complaint. I didn't complain much about Vietnam. There's a war on. That's the way it is. You just gotta accept it. But I was an operations clerk, and I watched how the company operated. The CO's right there, and I heard all the good poop, had access to the, kind of paperwork the Army didn't want a guy like me to see. Something interesting, though. Right next to us was the 586 signal. Right next to us. There was a fence that separated out of gates. You could go over there. They had a club. And believe it or not, I believe it was Saturday, they brought a couple large trucks full of prostitutes in. It was something. Women, probably more women there than men. I remember they had a mama's on that ran all the hookers, and she'd give you credit. Give you to have one of her service to one of her hookers. Well, our commanding officer, he hated that they did that. And he didn't like the idea they had a club. Yeah. Because we never had a club in D Company for this signal. He wouldn't allow it, which was wrong, absolutely wrong. Morale was crap there. So what he did was where the gate was through the 586, he closed it off, put concertina wire. If you don't know what concertina wire is, think of barbed wire around the gate so we couldn't go over there. When this commander finally left, a new commander comes in. First thing he did was build us a club. A pretty nice one for the situation. I'm not talking about some air-conditioned building with steaks every night. No, just a large wooden building with a bar, and they had cold soda pop, and you could actually buy a pizza there. So, anyway, the war carries on, and the January 31st, the Tet Offensive was when the communist enemies, basically the Viet Cong at that time, wanted to basically overthrow what was going on, overthrow the government. Well, they didn't succeed, but a lot of people were killed, a lot of battles. We weren't attacked during that, but down the valley, let's make it 2 miles away, at most 3, there was a large ammunition dump. And it's daylight now, and I can see puffs of smoke coming off the ammunition dump. Well, that's fun and strange. What it was, they were mortars, and they finally hit something and blew the place up and rattled everything around there, mini earthquake. And that night, I witnessed a helicopter go near a bunker on the side of Vung Chua Mountain. I have a video kind of about that, so I won't say much about it. But what I saw were tracers going at the helicopter, somebody shooting at it. Helicopter backed off and fired rockets into the bunker, and that was all. But my understanding, the Viet Cong went up the mountain, got in the bunker, killed the guys in there, and started shooting at a helicopter, which was a mistake they made. I feel sorry for the guys in the bunker. But stuff like this doesn't come out in the newspapers or your local bulletin, what really happened there. But I saw it, something happened. But anyway, we built a club, had the Tet Offensive. Here is a big, it's called a beef, because I like to play it sometimes. Weapons. Up until a certain point, we had our weapons with us. We didn't sleep in there. You could sleep within the bunk if you wanted, but had access to them right next to me, an ammunition if something happened. Because we were in this valley, and to our west was it's called, well, you call it Little Mountain if you want. And the enemy could have easily come down there and attacked us. So we were in a vulnerable position. And the only communications we had were administrative telephones. If the enemy's attacking, you get on there and tell the switchboard operator, get me somebody. But they never had any plans if we were attacked. And so anyway, let's get back to the weapons. One day they came and said, oh, you guys, E4 and below, put your weapons, clean them, and put them in the arms room. So we're going to lock them up. Well, I'm thinking, wait, there's a war going on here. And if the enemy attacks us, are they going to say, hey, give you a fair chance, go get your weapons out of the arms room? Bunch of crap. And talk about dangerous. Now, the Army probably say that's the right thing to do, this and that. Well, to the north of us was a prisoner of war camp. Never any problem with that, but you see them out there working. There are Viet Cong prisoners of war or North Vietnamese. Now, keep going north, make it a mile, was a transportation type company. Well, one night they got attacked. The Viet Cong came in there with satchel charges. I remember the first person they killed was the first sergeant for some reason. But the troops, E4 and below, us like a corporal, had no weapons. They were putting bunks and stuff up against the door of their billets, trying to keep the enemy out. They had no weapons. And I remember I could hear all this fighting going on. And the E5s had weapons, maybe, and the officers did, and senior NCOs. But however, there was a lot of Viet Cong, and they killed a lot of GIs, our fellow soldiers, die because of a stupid rule. You had to keep your weapons in the arms room. Now, where this rule was made was at USRV headquarters, which is in this place called Long Beach. You hear me talking about it. It was pretty safe duty there, really. They rarely got attacked. So they could put their weapons in the arms room. But they made it apply to us out there who were vulnerable. To me, that's just criminal. That is crap leadership. Absolutely horrendous leadership. Guys got killed. And it's possible we had to lock our weapons up because there was a situation where soldiers started killing their leaders. So I think they figured, well, we locked weapons up. They can't, kill the leaders. Nobody in my unit ever talked about killing a leader. But that's the Army mentality. It's the war going on. So anyway, terrible situation. Quite scary, really. But anyway, lucky me, I guess, well, actually unlucky. I'm finally done with this 6 or 7 month stint in the orderly room, and shipped me to Chulai, another place. Boy, I didn't like that place at all. Sent me back to the valley. So I go up there and had a lot of work to do, splicing telephone cable. In Chulai, the Marical Division headquarters was located there. Worked for a guy I never cared for, I won't mention his name. He actually retired up the road here about 20 miles. I didn't know he's dead now. I'd have gone to see him. Because we just didn't like him. I won't get too much into personalities. He leaves, get another fella replaces him. I ended up getting along with this guy, but he could be pretty mean sometimes. In formation, you'd get cussed out, call you an SOB and stuff. Got away with it. For reasons I've never known, the lieutenant up there, I think he hated me. I don't know what I did wrong to him. I did what I was supposed to do, kept my mouth. He just didn't like me. I think he didn't like me because I was every bit as smart as him. And I think smarter sometimes. But the sergeant, he could get on it sometimes. But one day he came to me and said, here's a report I did on you. Army report for him. It was good. It made me walking on water. By dang, Sergeant. I'm that good? I said, no, you're not that good. Don't get the big head about it. I want you to get promoted D5. And it's got to get a good report on you. But never get the idea, digging on me. Okay, Sarge. I go down to Long Beach. Well, I got to go to the company first. I turned the paperwork into the first sergeant, so I'm Copper. Sergeant Perry's I just gave his name away. Sergeant Perry. And anyway, the first sergeant said, your paperwork's not here. You have to have that efficiency report. I said, oh boy. So I called up Sergeant Perry. He went in the lieutenant's living quarters. And that lieutenant took my paperwork out of the packet and kept it and had it on his desk. Sends me to the company and doesn't tell me. And talk about dirty poo. I was dirty of him, SOB. Hope you're listening to this, Lieutenant. You're still alive. So the first sergeant asked me, what kind of soldier are you? A good soldier? Well, I hope so. Sergeant Perry thinks so. Lord bless the first sergeant. He wrote me up an efficiency report, didn't even know me. I go to Long Beach. There's 23 of us throughout the battalion going to this promotion board. Out of 23, I come up number 3. I didn't do too bad. I came up number 1, but the sergeant major asked me, in marching, when do you start off on the right foot, or do you? Man, I couldn't think of the answer. And yes, right step, march, you vets, if you remember, listen to this. You start off on your right foot, and you asked me my general order, and they just changed them from 11 to 3. I didn't know. So I come in, number 3. I just like to be number 1 for the tends to see. But 3's pretty good out of 23. And it wasn't very long after that I got promoted to D5. And that was the first of having a nice rank. You got a little bit of privileges with it, got paid more. And I was real proud of that. And we had several casualties. I have to tell this story. Several casualties in July. Dave Crawford, I liked him. There was a place where you had to do a splice. A lot of you listening to this could probably look out your picture window and you'll see a telephone line or telephone poles at the very top. It's your power lines. About 15 feet below that, you can have telephone cable. And that's just the way it goes. When anybody getting shot, killed, electrocuted. Well, there was a point where there was a splice about no more than 3 feet from the power. Our cable, and right above you was the power. Totally wrong. Someone should have done something about it. Dave had to work on that splice. He gets the aluminum ladder out, and darn if he didn't hit those power lines and it killed him. And I blame the Army on that one. And again, you're not going to see this in the paper or in Life magazine, how the Army will kill you. And that's one of the things I blame this, not Sergeant Perry, but this first sergeant at. That should have been done. And lo and behold, I have to go work on this cable. Crawford's dead, and I can go to that same place. So I'm very careful. And two Navy senior NCOs stopped their Jeep, looked up on me and said, "Buddy, that power can arc. It'll kill you." "Yeah, I know." "Well, I'm sitting here, so it didn't get me, did it?" But that was wrong. Absolutely wrong. That should have never happened. I tried to find Dave's gravesite out in let's see, I can't remember. It was out west. Anyway, it wasn't where I thought it was. I thought it was in New Mexico. That's right, Grants, New Mexico. But where he was born, he was buried across the border in Utah. This one, paid a visit. One day, they talked about sending me to Quang Tri, and they had the plane lined up, what plane I was going on. To Quang Tri, C-123 is what it was. But anyway, I'm getting ready to pack my stuff up to go, because I was going to take over this project in Quang Tri. Man, keep moving me north. Well, they stopped it. I didn't go. Okay. At that same time, our reenlistment NCO, the company had one with E6, Sergeant Simpkins, heck of a nice guy. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. He comes up, gives us our reenlistment talk. "You ought to do it." And we, with a smile on our face, tell him, "Well, why don't you go to hell?" Sergeant, we ain't re-enlisted after being up here. So he goes back to the airport, hops on this C-123 that I was supposed to be on. Plane takes off, pilot air that crashes on the beach. And it killed like 18 out of 40 is what I remember. And he was one of them. I see him say goodbye, and not long he was dead. And again, it's hard to find out about these kinds of plane crashes. I can find where the plane crashed, but there's no detail. And back in the unit about that time, this lieutenant I worked for committed suicide, which was permanent solution to a short-term problem. It's quite a story, but I'm not going to put it here. Stuck a shotgun in his mouth, pulled the trigger. Goodbye, Lieutenant. And but that's the 3 guys I knew that we lost. So carrying on, another story I tell is July to me was big place. The Marines, Air Wings were there, and Americal. A couple miles from us was the air base part. Had all these fancy Phantom jets and others. I don't know what you call them. And we'd have rocket attacks up there, fairly regular. And they'd usually target the airplanes to blow them up. And we'd stand out and watch the rockets come in. You couldn't really see them, but you could hear them blow up. We had a rocket go overhead once. It sounded like a freight train or something. But we'd watch them come in because our area didn't get the rockets. Well, one morning, the lieutenant came to us and says, when the rockets were getting rocketed, get in the bunker. 11 guys were killed last night over near the runway. They were standing on top of their bunker watching the rocket attack. And I'm wondering, is that really true? Well, in the daily bulletin, there it was. That rocket hit that bunker with 11 soldiers standing on it. 10 died on the spot and 1 died in the hospital. It was true. So no longer do I stand out there and watch the rockets blow up in the distance. Something doesn't happen to most signal guys, but I was laying in a bunk one night. The floor starts vibrating. My bunk is moving. My fan fell on me. Are we being attacked? I'm looking for my weapon. Then things calmed down and stopped. So I went outside and what it was, a B-52 strike a couple miles away on a mountainside. But I just remember that, and it gave me a laugh. But anyway, the July project never really got done. It was terribly poor engineering, and the Army, they're putting in phone systems, stateside type phone systems, like we're going to be in Vietnam forever. But I don't get into outside telephone plant engineering. Man, that'd be boring for most people. And I know when I got back to the States, I called the phone company up. And they told me they'd hire me as a cable splicer for $89 a week. Well, a lot of money, right? But anyway, back to Vietnam. I extended. When you extend it for 6 months, you got a free 30-day leave. And you could, ask in the extension paperwork, I want to be assigned to certain unit, another unit or location. And I put down I want to be in Saigon. And the thing about it, the Army would not let me extend unless they could find me a slot, and they did with the 69th signal. Compared to Chu Lai and Quin Yan and Phu Tai Valley, that was good duty. I won't talk a lot about it, but out of those crummy places, now Saigon, and had a swimming pool right back of where I slept. Had a great club. Sometimes we get 2 bands a night, rock bands. And as a club, you could always get good food, shrimp dinner, steaks, hamburgers, cheeseburgers. But the mess hall there was quite good. It was excellent. You had more than one choice. And had an NCO side. And I'm an E5 now, I could go use that side. You didn't have to take your tray back when you're done. They came and picked it up. But it was just darn good duty. You could go to town and do whatever you wanted to do. Spent a lot of time downtown Saigon. I enjoyed just walking around, eating at some of the restaurants. And I worked for a Sergeant Talley. He would be the best absolute NCO I ever worked for. He could be tough when he had to be. But what I remember, I had to do an installation job when I first got there. I didn't know how to do it, and I'm trying. I'm screwing it up. Here he comes. I thought, man, I bet he's going to work me over like the units I've been in before. He asked me, he said, Copper, you ever done this before? And I said, no, Sergeant. I know you're in that 40th signal. I know how they work. Here's how I work. If you can't do something, the job I send you on, you tell me. That's okay. Not to show you how. That's the way I work. And he meant it. And that was just a great guy to work for, And later, it's funny, he got transferred to Bangkok. I remember he called me, wanting me to re-enlist for Bangkok. He even had my positions figured out, and I was going to stay in Bangkok. But I decided not to re-enlist. I did other things. Eventually went back in the Army and got a commission. And retired and living on my pension and some other money. And when I got out, I went back to school on the GI Bill. took ROTC and came back in the Army as an officer, what I did, and I retired as a major. I get out of the Army, get myself a PhD in computer science, and I teach college. Became a college professor. I barely made it through high school. I guess I was lazy. And I guess at some point I had a, what do you call it, an epiphany or something, and got myself a doctorate in actually, it was computer information systems, the forerunner of the web. My master's would be in data communications. I was surprised myself, and I didn't know I was that smart. Maybe I'm not, but I did these things. And sitting here in Delray Beach, Florida, I'll be 78 if I make it to October. And I've enjoyed doing this. We're 40 minutes into it, and I could tell 100 different war stories. I would like to hear yours in the comments. Anything you wanted to add, or you knew me, or I knew you, or just usually I try to take a positive note. I know I complained in this video and the things that really bugged me in that war. But we were sent to fight a war we were not allowed to win. Some of you old timers like me, you can remember Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. Worked for John Kennedy, then Lyndon Johnson. And I'm not going to get into it here. I'm 40 minutes into this video. But in his biography, quite a number of years after the war, he said that he knew the Vietnam War wasn't winnable. Well, he knew this, and 58,220 were killed. When he knew it wasn't winnable back in the Johnson era, he should have resigned. Just, Johnson's not letting me win this. He's politicked it, and I'm out of here. But he didn't do that. He stuck around and did some crazy things as far as taking care of us. And I'll stop there. Boy, no, I won't. The honor flight. Should have worn my honor flight shirt. But I went on one of these honor flights for veterans. It was really good. Flew me up to Washington. The escorts we had from the VA, even the airport, had police escorts and overpasses. There were emergency people and fire trucks and policemen with sirens going off. It was something. Go up to D.C., bust around, a good meal. Even though I was stationed there, it's fun seeing the sights again at, up in Washington with these guys. So I'd highly recommend, if you're a veteran, try to go in one of these. If you don't know how to find out, go on the internet. Or you'd somebody do it for you. Look up honor flights for veterans. It'll pop up and tell you how to apply. But I highly recommend you go. You Vietnam vets, though, we didn't get a heck of a good welcome home. I could do another video on that now, 43 minutes. But I've enjoyed doing this, always wanted to do it, hate to stop now. And if you've watched some of all this video, thank you very much. Welcome home to everybody. And especially my Vietnam vet buddies, there's still a lot of us around. If you see another vet, shake his hand. But I'm going to stop with this, and I've enjoyed doing it. I am making more videos. I made a video about a captain I knew that was murdered. Fragged, we called it. You might want to look at that. And anyway, so long from Dr. Mike Copper in Delray Beach, Florida.